Hello everyone and welcome to World of Warplanes. This is Asaruka Yamamoto and today I will be talking about my Spitfire V DB 605. It's also known as the German Spitfire and some of you might know that this is pretty much my pride of the Navy. But today I will be looking at various builds for this aircraft. So I'm playing on the CC account, not on my own account, because I'm explaining what builds are possible. Now, if we are looking at various builds, we are of course at first looking at equipment. And there are two pieces of equipment possible for the cockpit slot, 4 for the airframe slots, and 4 for the engine slots. Now, if you have the stock setup, so you don't have the second airframes unlocked, that means you have 2 times 4 times 4 possibilities. That is 32 setups that I could make. And if I'd also unlock the 4th slot, the second airframe, I'd have 2 times 4 times 4 times another 3 for the second airframe. That's 96 possibilities. Obviously I'm not going over all of them, but I'll treat the main ones and I'll explain you how those form. So first of all, for a build it's quite important to in general I will expect people to get their aircraft specialist, especially for premium aircraft. Of course you don't have to do this, and I'll also explain which the main components are of the build. So for instance, if you have a build here for this Spitfire, I'll explain what the build is in terms of the stock components, the slots that you have unlocked in the stock configuration, and the additional slot. So, let's start then. First of all, we have here an equipment slot for the cockpit. There are only 2 options here, one being cockpit armor and the second being the sight. Now personally I never put cockpit armors on anything else than a bomber. And of course there are people out there who say, okay, you could place them on multi-roles, you could place them on ground attack aircraft, on heavy fighters, just to protect your pilot. And that's true, but you lose aircraft maneuverability. The sight on the other hand improves your gun accuracy and it reduces the pilot's resistance. So your pilot will die a lot more frequent using a sight than using cockpit armor, because the armor actually protects your pilot. But in stuff like fighters and everything, just use a first aid package instead of a fire extinguisher, and that should do pretty much the trick for me. So one exception there is if you want to go for a survivability build, then you could use a cockpit armor, otherwise always use a sight. Now put in a rather good sight, doesn't really matter for the general build. So now up next is the skins, or the airframes actually. There are a lot of options here, and here's really where you start to specialize in what you want to do with your aircraft. And I'm now basically looking at the positive sides rather than the negative sides. So the first one is a reinforced skin, and it improves your tails and wings resistance to damage. That simply means that if your tail and wing can get knocked out, it means you can't control them anymore. That will happen less often when you have this. Quite useful, but not for a first build. The second one is HP increase. Again, I would strictly not recommend this on anything that has anything to do with maneuverability, but if you want to go with the survivability build, I'll show you what a survivability build looks like later on. Never go with this, it's a complete waste of potential. And we have the lightweight wing frame, and the lightweight wing frame basically does the exact opposite of the reinforced airframe. It increases aircraft maneuverability, and it can significantly increase your aircraft maneuverability, but you lose a bit of HP. Now, some people say, okay, but I don't want to lose HP. Well, if you can outturn an enemy fighter, you can simply dodge his bullets more easily, and that means you don't need HP because you simply fly away from him. And the fourth option here is also a very valid option for fighters like this. Polished skin, it increases your aircraft speed. This is also a really valid option for stuff like heavy fighters, which rely on their speed. So it's very good for aircraft that rely on energy retention. The disadvantage of the polished skin is that you lose a bit of aircraft maneuverability, but it's not that severe. The main thing there is that you don't have the bonus to the aircraft maneuverability that you would have with a light wing frame. And then we have the engine slots. Engine armor protection, again, never bother with it unless you are going for a survivability build. Again, I'll show it to you later. The boost system. The boost system is actually an interesting option, but I feel like, yeah, it really depends on the kind of aircraft that you're in. This one increases your boost efficiency, but the boost availability gets less. And in my opinion, you should want this on any aircraft that can make these really small bursts of boost. But then you really have to have an engine that packs a punch, preferably such as the American fighters, I think. But again, there are also other things that you could choose there. But this is a valid option. Don't get me wrong there. The lightweight power unit. This is one of my personal favorites actually. Simply because, well, it improves maneuverability, and the only thing you lose is engine resistance to damage. Well, if your engine gets knocked out, again, you can repair it with consumable. So basically, the minus side here is pretty much nothing, and gaining maneuverability is godlike in my opinion. And then last we have engine thrust, the upgraded engine that is. And the downside there is resistance to fire. And again, that wouldn't be so bad because there are ways to extinguish your fire even if you don't have your fire extinguisher equipped in the first slot. Now, this is actually also a very good option, especially for aircraft that like to climb high and stuff. A bit less if you want to build for maneuverability. If you want to build for speed, definitely go with this one. And also if you want to build for high altitude, but generally aircraft that can be built for high speed can also already have quite high altitude performance. Now if we look at those 96 options that I talked before, we currently have a sight, and if you do the cockpit armor, sure, we can do a cockpit armor. But the only reason why we could ever do a cockpit armor is if we want to go with a survivability build, which would look like this in its upgraded, in its full configuration, with this slot always being the last slot. So the top three are the ones that you would deploy in the stock configuration, and this one added in the specialist mode. Yeah, basically what happens here is your aircraft gets a bit more survivable, okay, but you lose maneuverability, you lose altitude performance, you lose airspeed, you don't get any bonus to gun armament. This isn't really what a fighter should look like, is it? If you want to go with this, well, I won't stop you, except that I will be shooting you down with real ease in any aircraft. This is not what those aircraft are meant to look like. So, what do I want to see then? Well, first of all, I never want to see the cockpit armor again, neither do I want to see the reinforced airframe again, and I don't want to see the engine armor protection again. So we had 2 times 4 times 4 times 3 options, was the 96 options. Now we have 1 option for the cockpit, 3 times 2 options for the airframe, that's 6 options, and 3 options for the engine. That's only 18 options out of the 96 initial options left. That's manageable. I'm still not going over all of them though, but I'll explain my main builds. And initially I think it's really cool to say, okay, I'd like to go with just a full maneuverability build. And that means that you choose an engine and a wing frame that go for maneuverability. Of course this one has maneuverability bonus, and then if we look at the 4th slot here, we can't choose anything that has a maneuverability bonus, but we also can only choose one that doesn't have a maneuverability penalty. And if we look at the bonus here, then we can actually see that your wings and tail will survive better, and effectively that sort of increases maneuverability. And this is actually the build that I use on my German Spitfire. Of course fully upgraded, but that's not for now. This is a maneuverability build. Now next up is a speed build. And a speed build would mean, okay, now we want to choose an airframe and an engine that increase our speed. We can see here that the cruise speed and the acceleration are really going up nicely, and we could choose an airframe that doesn't affect our speed, so we could choose basically either of these now, but the reinforced skin now, you shouldn't choose it because it affects your aircraft speed, and I said okay, you should never pick the reinforced airframe. That leaves us with the lightweight wing frame, and that actually means that you get sort of a crossover build here, and that's interesting because this increases both speed and maneuverability. So this means that right now I'm already working on something that is not a pure speed build, but a crossover build of speed and maneuverability. And you could do this in other ways as well, but this definitely is interesting to do it in this way. And because you have both a speed and a maneuverability increasing airframe now, you could also say, okay, but I want to tap more maneuverability and replace this engine by the lightweight power unit, such that the balance now goes towards maneuverability. And these are both balanced builds, and they'll leave you with both really good maneuverability and good airspeed. While the maneuverability build that I showed you might feel a tad sluggish towards, well, compared with aircraft that actually have a speed build. So, one more option that I'd like to go over is the combined injection boost system. And yeah, this is also interesting, but basically to see what it really does, I'd have to enhance it a couple of times. Because what this thing does is that you can actually fly faster with your boost, and your acceleration with your boost is also better, but your boost simply keeps on going less long. And that's actually an interesting trade-off, but this is where the interesting bit here comes in. If you have bonus effects like these, and this is insane that I actually got this right now, you have a 15% engine cooldown rate bonus. That means that, well, you have a penalty here of 15% boost availability. So the counter will go to only 85% of its maximum, but it also regenerates 15% fast. And effectively that just means that your boost has now gotten more powerful, but you don't have any downside to it. Yes, you do build up less, but if you use it often enough, it also regenerates much quicker. So really interesting option. But personally, I would more use this on multi-rolls with a boost like 12 till 20 seconds. Something like the German Fokker Wolves, which really struggle to keep their energy level up high. There I actually use the engine boost system there. But of course you could also place it on this one. So that's basically the build. As for the consumables, you should take a first aid package over here. Definitely, that's just, I'm not even asking you to do so, just do so. Whether you are taking a speed build or a maneuverability build, that's just the wisest thing to do, because you can counter fires in two other ways. One is over here using the bleeding system, which actually reduces the chance of getting set on fire, and the other is just by saying that you'd like to have the firefighting skill in your pilot, and that also really helps. As for the engine, pick the engine restart. And ammunition, yeah, you could use it. There are real bonuses to using it. Universal is often used by many players. Gives a bit more chance of scoring criticals and fires. Ballistics are a tad different. I generally use universal ammo. So this would be my optimal setup for consumables. And then if you look at the pilot, there are a couple of interesting things here, and one of the most crucial skills to pick up here is actually aerodynamics expert in both speed and maneuverability builds, because it increases all positive effects of equipment by 40%. And that's insane, because I have pieces of equipment that do like 10% maneuverability. Well, if that becomes 14%, that's pretty amazing. And if you do that with speed, then it might be 8% speed, and then it goes up to 11.2. So that's really cool, and it only costs 2 points. Definitely pick that one up. Also a good one is to take firefighter, because this means that you can actually extinguish fires by turning, just spinning around and everything. Yeah, and that takes some getting used to, but once you have this, you'll never need a fire extinguisher anymore in maneuverable aircraft. Really cool skill. So yeah, I haven't really flown any of this yet now. I'm planning on doing so in my next video, but obviously this one is just to show you what possibilities there are, which one I think are complete garbage and which ones I think are definitely recommendable. Yeah, I hope to put some actual gameplay with various builds online really soon. So see you guys all around. And thank you, Time Warp, for the suggestion. Really cool idea. See you.